Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I am your host, Shane Grove. And before we get into this episode, I just want to remind everybody that if you want to get a hold of us, you can find us on Facebook at From the Shadows Podcast or our forum page at After the Shadows Podcast on Facebook. You can find me at Shane Grove Author on Instagram, or you can find our From the Shadows Podcast Instagram page and send us a message. Or the good old-fashioned way, just go to the FromTheShadowsPodcast.com, hit the contact button, send us an email. I promise I'll read it, especially if you have an encounter you want to share and maybe come on the show. Because the two guests I'm going to bring on here in a second, that's how they got on the show. I'm just going to forewarn everybody, if you're eating anything or drinking anything that you might spit up from laughter, you might want to put it down here before I bring these two guys on. I also want to give a little heads up. We're going to be, the From the Shadows podcast crew is going to be at Monster Fest June 3rd in Canton. I think you can still get tickets if you go to monsterfest.com. We're going to have a table there. We're going to do some podcasting. We're going to do some lives. So come see me and the judge, Nita, the social media expert, and Phil, who's been doing our production work with the podcast, especially since everybody knows Jason's no longer with us, but Jason will be there in spirit. We hope this is where he shows up in spirit and has some fun, because I know he was really looking forward to this event. So it'll be kind of melancholic for us. That's our buddy. We know he'll be there, and it should be a fun time. So come out, see us, take some pictures. We'll have some merch and stuff. So we're looking forward to that. So I know how to. I think I know how to describe these guys. These are two quote unquote amateur ghost hunters from Southern Ohio that reached out to me through a post we did on Ohio Mysteries podcast page, and have a really crazy, cool story from their very first ghost hunt. And I can't wait to get into this story, but I want to welcome Brent and Eric to the From the Shadows podcast. Welcome, guys.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it.
Hey, listen, behind the scenes, and I promise we'll just cut this out. No, I won't. But behind the scenes, okay, for everybody listening, we record through Skype. No video, we just do audio. That's kind of how we record. And Brent told me today, hey, look, we don't have Skype. We're we're technologically challenged. We can't do this. And these are a couple of guys that are going out ghost hunting with sophisticated equipment. So I'm wading into the story like, okay, I mean, are they using this equipment right? But I think they are. I just think they were scared to take the Skype leap and join the rest of us that use Skype and stuff. But
I was more scared using Skype than I was being on Swamp Road. Almost, not quite.
Almost. Oh geez. Hey, I can listen. I'm right there with you. You don't know what you're getting into on Swamp Road. But you think you do. At least Skype, you never know what you're getting into. Trust me,
right.
We never know.
Yeah.
Never know. Exactly. So I don't care. Whichever one of you guys wants to take the lead, tell us how you guys got together as friends. You don't have to go into detail, but how long you guys have been talking about going out and doing a ghost hunt, and what made you guys think it was a good idea, and why you went to this place called Swamp Road. Kind of tell us the story, like what the genesis was of why you guys thought this would be a great first place to go try out.
Well, Shane, you know what? We both like to talk a lot, so I'm gonna bow to Brent, and he's gonna give you a little history, because the thing is, I could probably take up the entire podcast on the history between.
Okay.
we'll go ahead and let Brent tell that story, and then he can lead into how we ended up out on Swamp Road.
Yeah. So Eric and I have known each other for about 6 years. Met at the gym originally, and so we ran into each other that way for a few years, and then afterwards, about 3 years ago during the pandemic, we decided to start hiking, and we went pretty much all over the state, different trails, hiking, enjoying it. And one of the conversations that we always came to around the middle of the woods was, I wonder what it was like here 100 years ago, 150 years ago, that sort of thing. Just kind of wondering, like, what's the history of this place? Because sometimes when you're out in the woods, you find little things. You know, we found like a wheel or a parts of a car or a foundation of a house. And it's, you know, nature's overgrown it, that sort of thing. So we would always wonder, what's the story here? So we hiked. We did it for about a year and a half. And we both got busy with life and, kept in contact via social media and text and things like that. But since we were hiking, I got into continue to hike and look for ruins and things like that, and old ghost towns in Ohio and such. And it seems like, I believe Eric got into that as well, as far as also ghost hunting. And I, Ohio mysteries, all the different things. I do a lot of time just through my spare time looking at that. And I came across the story of Swamp Road. And Swamp Road is actually probably 20 minutes from my house. So I said, I got to check this out. So back in December, I drove it during the day. And it's a pretty nondescript road. It's maybe only a couple miles long. And there's some houses at the beginning. There's some houses near the end of the road. In the middle, it's pretty much fields on each side. But what's kind of interesting about the road is there's like a little dip off each side, 2-3 foot dip, because it used to be a swamp and it's, since been covered up and things. And now it's just a pretty much open field. But what attracted me to check that out during the day, Swamp Road, is what I had heard stories of. And what's interesting with the stories is I had not heard anything about it for the longest time. And I try to follow Ohio mysteries and folklore and all that, but I never heard of it. And I just recently heard of it, and that caused me to go there. And it's basically the quick version of it is, on that road, people drive it middle of night, whenever, and they see a ghostly apparition walking along the road. And what I understand from reading about it is usually it's a girl who probably got hit. I don't know the time frame or when it happened, but I got hit by a road, got thrown into the swamp, and they never found her body. There's no historical documentation, nothing like that. It's more that folklore type of thing. But there's a whole website even that I saw dedicated to it. So I said, we got to check this out at some point. So I went during the day, checked it out. About a month and a half later, we just aligned our schedules. Or a cold January night, snowing, about 9:00. We decided that we were going to go to Swamp Road. And Eric, who I let him explain kind of all what he had, he was kind of in charge of the supplies, and he brought all those and his energy for doing this. And we had a good time. So I'll turn it over to him and kind of go from Swamp Road on, if that's okay.
Well, I'm going to guess. Based on you guys' claims of technological ignorance, that he brought a lighter, he brought a butterfly net, he brought like a reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I'm totally.
Yeah, we know how to operate wheel to wheel. So yeah, and then I don't know if you've seen it, but it is a battery operated butterfly net. It's one of those you push a button and it has like an arm, a swing arm on it.
Which I think it's cool. Like, I think it's cool that you guys are a little bit above that pay grade. But I think it's cool. Like you searched out this what is seemingly almost more of an urban legend than a factual type event. They call, you know what I'm saying? Like it almost seems like it's hearsay. It's an urban legend, and because you can't really find anything out about it. So that's interesting to me. That to then what we're going to get into here. So.
And plus, it's a road, so it's public. I'm not big into trespassing or anything. So I thought, okay, we could test it out on a road, and it's kind of close to desolate. I mean, it's close to things. There's houses on either side, not too far from Route 70, but it is kind of desolate. So we could kind of get out there, not be bothered, but also not be trespassing. So I thought this would be kind of a good spot to check out along with the story.
Okay, so Eric, explain how you were gearing up to go on this ghost hunt and what you were kind of expecting or hoping to encounter.
Yeah, so the build up to this is perfect, Brent. Thank you, because really, I did end up having some equipment, and maybe the question begs, like, well, why does somebody like me, a novice ghost hunter, never really been out there, even really know how to use any of this equipment? I got the equipment, but I didn't really know how to use it. But yet, this is the first one we're going to go out on, right? So my background is I've had some experiences, and I have been like, I need to document this somehow. There are opportunities that are out there that I should be catching up on. And so that's the reason I got the equipment, was because I've had these past experiences. And then after Brent and I were talking about all the history of Ohio and all of that, and then he was like, hey, let's go out the Swamp Road. Yeah, urban legend, but hey, I got a video camera now, so we're going to use it. And so I grabbed the video camera, and actually I'm looking at it here in my office. I've got it hooked up. I've got a spare battery for it. I've got it hooked into, got that plugged in. The camera's up on a tripod right now, but I just took it off the tripod, had the camera with me, and then I have an EMF tester just to check for electromagnetic anomalies, if we were to run into something. And then on my phone, I found that Ghost Tube app, which I don't put a lot of, I guess, trust in that, just because you never know what's going to come across on there. It could be anything from the internet, right? I mean, it's hooked up to, the ether. So who knows what that app is downloading or what it's getting. But I figured with these three pieces of equipment, we might be able to capture something. So we drove out there, and we had my truck, and we thought, well, we'll get on that road. And just like Brent did in the daylight, we just drove it down one way, just to see how things felt. And the reason I say how things felt is because I'm a bit of an empath in the fact that things start to feel a little creepy. It's not necessarily that things are creepy. It's like temperature change. I can kind of, I sense that kind of stuff. And it's not like, I don't want to sound like I'm, weird, but I'm thinking that people who are listening to us right now are kind of going, oh yeah, I know what that feels like. Where you just know things are a little bit off. And that has been a lot of my experiences. So that's really why we drove it down first without any equipment going, because we wanted to see what was the general feeling. And it was a dark, desolate road. That's for sure. But driving down, I even told Brent, I said, I don't know, I'm not really feeling too much here, so I don't know really what we're gonna run into. So we turned around at the other end, and just like Brent said, at the other end, there's a farm down there, and you're kind of out on a main road where we turned around, but we got out the equipment, and I gave Brent my YouTube or my Ghost Tube on my phone. So he had that. I got the camera out, and I was like, all right, I'll set the camera up, maybe up on the dash. And I went to turn on the camera, and my battery was dead. Now, like I said earlier, I'm looking at my camera. It's hooked up. I have it plugged in. It's green lighted. It is fully charged right now. And that's the way it was whenever I took it out there that night. So really weird how, like Brent said earlier, we just went out. It was on a whim. I picked it up. I checked to make sure that battery was good. But somehow between my house, his house, and that battery went dead. So,
and even if you just had the camera on, your battery's not going to die.
Right. Not like that. It wouldn't even turn. The camera wouldn't even turn on. So to me, that's signal. There's something happening right there. Something drained the battery, the energy out of that battery. And I unfortunately, the rookie mistake, and I'll take this one. I did leave the extra battery at home. Yep. So of course, right. So I thought, all right, well, screw that. I'm gonna have to, and I'll end up using. I'll use the EMF reader. Well, the EMF reader, as you guys know, you put that against something that's electronic, and it reads in a solid number with a point, and then mine goes out to the hundredths of a decimal to find out what the electronic output is of what's going on. So I put it up against my watch and the dash, and what were we getting, Brent? Maybe a 1 out of it.
Yeah, not high at all.
So you're trying to establish a baseline of what is around you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just trying to figure out, okay, because truth be told, so I've only had this equipment out one other time before, and these 3 items, right? So the first time I had the camera out, it looked like something out of an 80s home video. It was shaky. It was all over the place, and I ended up deleting the footage because it was just like, it was the kitchen, and it was a living room, and there was a floor, and then it was a ceiling, and then it was there was my foot, and then my hand was in front. It was kind of goofy. So I deleted that, and that was my first shot with the camera. And then with the EMF reader, I've done that in my own home, and there's stories about my own home too. And if my youngest son is in the other room and he's listening right now, he could vouch for this. But I've got some readings here in the house, and I was just like, okay, well, I'll check this out with the ghost tube. And the ghost tube, one night, I pulled it out and put it over on the kitchen table. And I don't know if you guys know how the ghost tube works too, but ghost tube, what it does is it will pick up and translate unaudible voices or electronic pulses, I guess, or something along those lines, but it will pick up on the voices.
It's kind of like a spirit. It's what they use on the shows. They call it a spirit box.
Spirit box. Right? Yes, that's it. Yeah. Perfect, Jane. Thank you. Yeah, so it's just like a spirit box, right? So, but it doesn't say anything. It just comes up with whatever word it's hearing. And beside the story on this is I put it on the kitchen table, and we were doing work in the basement, and I walked away, and my youngest son was with me, and immediately what came up was basement destroyed. And he looked over at it and he was like, wow, yeah, the basement is destroyed. So he was like out of the room.
What? Okay, we'll get back to your house because that is crazy. Okay, so you've heard this thing work in your house, which you think that there's something possibly there too. So you maybe have a little faith in what this thing is capable of doing?
I'm thinking so. And, and that's what I think that, we're probably all thinking, right? Okay, you're going to take the equipment out. You better have at least a little bit of faith in it, right?
Yeah.
And so, Brent's got that in his hand. And then I've got the EMF in my hand, and in one hand, and I got the steering wheel in the other. And we're, okay, let's go down the road. I start out 25 miles an hour. And we go past the first farm on the right, and we start to crawl up the hill, which is actually the bridge that goes over Interstate 70. And we start to crawl down the other side of the hill, and my EMF reader starts to go off. And it's like 1.5, 2, and it's beeping. And I think we started to communicate at that point, Brent, didn't we? We started to ask some questions.
Yes. Yeah, and I could not remember the questions that you asked. I remember some of the readings on on the ghost tube was like, don't go, danger.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't remember if we asked that question or if it just came out of the blue. I could not recall that.
Well, whenever we go out to do sessions, and this is just stuff I've learned off of, watching, the TV shows and such. And so, and I thought, well, I give it a go. I just say, hey, is there anybody here that would like to communicate with us? Is there any reason as to why we shouldn't be talking to you? Things along those lines that kind of introducing ourselves and our intentions. And these were, as Brent said, these were the words that we were getting was like, don't. And, I think even like go away came up. And it was just like, and my EMF reader, while we're driving down the road, is getting more intense. We ended up getting.
So it feels like you're getting closer to the source of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it really felt that way. But at the same time, being a bit of a skeptic, I'm turning to Brent and I'm going, how close are we to the power lines? Where's the power lines here? Is there a transformer that maybe we just missed? We didn't see that. Just trying to make sure that we were being as clean with our investigation as we could.
Well, you're also saying like you went over 70, right?
Yeah.
So
it went to 8 eventually as we about halfway down the road.
No. I mean, as you were driving, you drove over 70.
Oh, over 70.
Over Route 70, right? Over Route 70.
It's probably, maybe a mile, 2-3 miles away from the one end of Swamp Road. Okay. Because you can see the road. Yeah.
Because my thing is so you're driving over a major highway like that, and you always wonder like if that thing could possibly pick up stuff from like a semi, like a CB or something. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
But this ghost tube now, it's just showing you an answer. It's not actually speaking it.
Correct. Yeah, it's just showing these words. It's not speaking it. So as we're going along, it's just so Brent had that up on like the dashboard, up on the dash. And so as we're riding along, just these words are coming up pretty much in relation to the questions that we're asking. And so, it just really gave that feeling of like, okay, there's something here that's trying to communicate with us, with the EMF reader starting to go off and incessantly the beeping was starting to get to the point of like, stop.
Yeah.
And I even asked, to like, at one point we were almost to the other end of the road and I'm like, stop this beeping. Like it is just like, it was incessant. And so it was crazy how we got to the end. And I think, and Brent, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to remember this, but we got to the end and I think I was like, hey, you know what? We're going to leave because I can't take the beeping anymore of the EMF reader. Like it was it was too much. It was
bad. Yeah.
And I was like, maybe we'll just go on to Newark, because that's what we were going to do is continue in Newark that night. And I know for a fact, whenever we got to the end of the road, I put the turn signal on and my EMF reader is still beeping, but then it said, did it say don't go? And my EMF reader shut off. And we pulled out onto the road to go. And Brent looks at me and he's like, it says don't go. And the EMF reader just like stopped. Like there was no readings. And so I got out on the road and I'm like, well, maybe we should turn around and go back. And so whip it around, right? Pulled it around and went back out onto Swamp Road. And this time we're like, all right, we're going to roll down the road here, just nice and quiet. And we're going to see what we find. It was snowing, remember? I put down the window. Like, I want to see something. I want to hear something. What's going on? Well, as we started to go back down Swamp Road, the EMF reader starts going off again. And I don't want to make this something of a spiritual thing, but there was a time whenever it said I had asked who we were communicating with again, and Satan came up, which I don't want to necessarily go there, but that was freaky. I almost sent Brent over the edge.
Yeah. I was about ready to walk home after that.
Well, so there shows your inexperience. When something says Satan, you don't get out of the car and walk home. I'm just gonna give you a hint. Stay in the truck. Roll the windows up.
I'm a classical B movie guy right there. That I would do exactly what they do, and we wouldn't tell them not to do. That's what I do, I guess.
No, Brent, don't go. Don't go.
Yeah, and look at us. We're turning around and going back.
Gosh.
We're smart.
So the EMF is starting to go off again. Now, not as intense as it was before.
No, back to full on intensity.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Yeah, to the point of where it was like, okay, this is ridiculous, and it got to the point where it was so ridiculous, I was like, I am going to get out of the truck, and so I did. But at that same time, whenever we were talking about like, okay, this EMF reader is really going off really bad, I'm going to give my perspective of what I saw in Brent's face as he was watching the ghost tube up on the dashboard, and he was seeing a light in our screen. In that screen, it was a light about 2 telephone poles down. So if you count like one telephone pole here and then another one a little further down, there was this white glowing light in the ghost tube. And he's like, Eric, there's a light. And I'm driving, right? I'm looking out through the windshield. I'm like, there's no light. I don't see any light. And so like, that's whenever I stop and I look over, and sure enough, in his screen, there's this white globe of light on the screen just down the road. And my EMF reader's, just beeping away. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting out and I'm going to go check this thing. Maybe that's where Brent should have stopped me. Maybe, are we really friends, Brent? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't just get out of the truck. But I put it in park and I get out, and I walked probably 10 feet out in front of the hood of my truck, and my EMF reader stopped. Silent. But at the very same time, and we're talking at the very same time, that stopped. I looked at it. I'm looking at my dead EMF reader, no numbers. I hear Brent behind me. He got out of the truck and yelled, "The light's gone." It was like, what just happened?
Okay, so this ghost tube. So I didn't realize that. So you're like can see, like it's almost like what are you seeing on the screen?
So the screen.
So this is on your phone, but it's showing you like
just as if you would take a picture. It's just showing you what like if you're taking a picture, basically. Is that correct? Like when I just looked through his phone. I mean, Ghost 2 was still up, but I still looked through his phone, and it had what was out there. But through his phone,
so it's like a video, like you're seeing a video.
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah. But if I look away, if I take my gaze off the phone, I would not see anything. But if I go back, then there'd be the white light. So that I thought that was really weird, where I, naked eye, I didn't see anything. Go back and looking through the ghost tube on Eric's phone, and I could see the white light.
Okay, so if I was a complete skeptic, I'd say, man, these people who created this ghost tube app, they really are, they've got it all set up. They got you scared. They're projecting this light on the screen, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you could see how somebody could be doing it, but because you had like independently the EMF reader at the same time, and then go off and the light go off, either those guys running that ghost tube are so good they can affect the EMF reader.
Right.
And assume that you have an EMF reader, okay? That's what totally like, okay, this is crazy, because you have two different separate pieces of equipment that are functioning at the same time and both showing you that something is happening. There's something going on. Wow. Okay.
That was the wow moment, Shane. It was the, oh my gosh, because as Brent said, the light's gone. I turned to him and I go, EMF reader stopped. And there we are in the dark, me standing outside the truck at this point, which didn't happen for very long. I was back inside the truck, and we were just looking at each other going, what just happened? He had his equipment and experience at the very same time that I had my equipment and experience, and we were easily 15, 20 feet apart from one another.
So I wonder, okay, if that light was always there, you guys just weren't looking at it. Like when it said don't go, maybe that light was behind you guys, and you guys couldn't. You know what I'm saying? You couldn't see it. It was behind you guys, because if you weren't looking at a certain spot right through the phone, you're not going to see it.
Right.
It's saying don't go, and it's see, and you couldn't see it with the naked eye. That's interesting. Some food. So yeah, Brent, don't get out and walk.
No.
Because so everything stops. You jump back in the truck, and then what?
Well, this is kind of, I think, an interesting addition to the story. And Eric, stop me if I jump too far ahead, but we wanted to stop 3 places that night. One was Swamp Road, and the other is just up the road from Swamp Road is Newark. And just through my, reading on the internet, I had read about 2 stories that had happened in Newark. One, which there's not a lot of information about either, is a B-25 crashed into downtown Newark. I think it was in the 40s, maybe. It was headed from Dayton, and it crashed. And I think there was 4 or 5 people who perished in that. And it's supposedly where the crash happened. Some of the houses have experienced some paranormal activity. Even on the road, there's been some paranormal activity. So we were going to take Eric's new equipment and check that out. And the other is over by the prison, which there's a lot of stories about that. There was a real quick story about that. There was somebody during the Prohibition era was arrested for killing someone. He was actually for Prohibition. He was arrested for killing someone, put in jail. A mob gathered outside of the Newark prison and took him out and beat him to death, basically in the middle of the road. So we were going to check where that was. So we went to those 2 areas. Now, those are historical, at least from my understanding, historical record of the crash and of that particular issue at the prison. So we took his equipment there, and nothing on EMF, nothing on ghost tube, completely silent, which surprised me because, those have quite a bit of stories to them, but we did not capture anything.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that. That surprised me too, because usually like just that story, the negative energy that would have had to have been present when that event took place, you would think that would still be churning around somehow, and would still be present in some aspect. But the fact that you guys couldn't get that equipment to duplicate anything that you guys had done prior leads because if I'm the owner of GhostTube, I'm just, I'm making something happen every time you turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
That's the something. Right. So, but the fact that it didn't, nothing happened, leads me to believe, okay, well, all right, it's not, because you got to have some sort of skepticism about that. You got to really consider, like, okay, is this real? But the fact that you guys went out almost immediately afterwards and are trying to duplicate stuff and nothing happens, it leads me to think that there's a lot of credibility to that interaction.
That's probably one of the biggest reasons why Swamp Road was such a big deal for Brent and I, because to go into Newark, to go to these different places, and then not be able to have any recreation on our equipment of what was there. So who knows? But at Swamp Road, the stuff was going wild. Was crazy enough for us to go, you know what? That was an experience that we had. There's just no denying it at this point. I'd love to be able to poke holes in it. And I think that, if there's anybody out there that does feel as though, hey, you guys didn't do this or you didn't do that, that's great. I'd love to be able to know that kind of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, the equipment really showed us what was happening. And, I wouldn't say I'm going to totally trust it all the time, but it is something that, right now where we are as novices, we're learning about it. And this was a great learning experience for us to be able to do that. So one other thing there before we get too far along too is whenever I got back inside the truck, there is a recording option on the GhostTube, which I did not tell Brent about earlier. And so whenever I said, hey, did you get that on recorded? Or did you get that recorded? And he goes, no. So all of this stuff that we're saying, we're like, oh, well, we had the option to record it, but we didn't. So
we know better for next time.
Yeah, exactly. Now we know. So to be able to have that and, just kind of at the end have it, just the two of us almost in silence as we drove to Newark, like, wow, what just happened to us? That was pretty wild. So,
yeah, I was taken back. Like, I could almost picture you guys being like Wayne and Garth after they met, like Alice Cooper, and they pause for a second, and they're like, "We're not worthy." I can see you guys get back in the truck and do it. But
yeah, there was a little bit of that. Yep.
But the downside is that now, you guys have experienced something. What's it going to be like when you go out a couple times and maybe don't experience anything? You're going to be disappointed, or are you just going to be like, every time maybe solidifies the fact that first experience was even, was that much more real?
Well, I think, Shane, boy, you bring up a great question, because Brent and I have also gone down to, was it Moon Tunnel?
Moonville. Yeah, there was a wall
tunnel. Yep. And we tried to have some experiences and such down there. That wasn't something that, happened for us. We ended up out in Newark, and it was kind of a bummer of a deal. But, at the end of the day, it's the hunt, it's the search, it's the, the story behind all this stuff that we're looking at. So even now, to kind of give you a precursor to if we get invited back by you, Shane, is, I'm researching Delaware. There's a lot of stuff that's going on up in old Delaware, and the history that goes on there. And I know Brent has done the same. He goes out and sees the history of things as well. And I think between the two of us seeing what's out there in Ohio that we can go out and investigate, I don't think we're ever going to be for a loss of some kind of a wonderment, either within the history or if it's something that's going to be paranormal.
Yeah, because we usually like to tie it to the history, because it's kind of like a win-win. If we get history and paranormal, that's awesome. If we don't get the paranormal, we still can get the history and see what it was like, or what it's currently and was like before, and so that's a good thing.
Yeah, Eric, Brent was telling me that he's doing research on, and I don't even know if he realized it, but my day job is I'm a mailman, and he's like, oh, we found this really great story about this mailman that got killed, and we're going to go do this ghost stuff. And I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I was actually able to find the story and kind of read about it, and it looks like a very interesting story. But it took place like in 1825, so it's another one of those stories that's been around for 200 years. And if you guys are able to go out and kind of experience something, that's just mind blowing to me that there's energy and something hanging around for 50, 100, 200 years and more in some of these places of an event that took place,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
So Eric, you teased us about living in a haunted house. Like, what are some of the other stuff that's happened at your house? Because seemingly that's what spurred you on to, like you said, get some equipment and kind of document some things.
Yeah. So, I mean, my house it's not old. I live in northern Worthington, essentially. And I guess the only thing that's kind of creepy about it is that there was a woman and a man that lived here, the prior owners, and she passed away. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure out from the neighbors if she actually passed away here in the house or if it was afterwards, but nevertheless, my kids will tell you, and my kids are not necessarily kids, they're adults. They are in their 20s and, kind of living their life. But we moved in about 8 years ago, and they will tell you that being downstairs is a creepy experience in and of itself. And it's not, like I said, we're in an old house. This is relatively new. So with a finished basement and the whole bit. And
well, apparently you don't keep it very clean.
According to somebody else in the house. Yeah, exactly. It's just that, and I would say, being of the feeling that I have here, it's not necessarily all the time. It's not necessarily a weird energy. But there's been moments where it's like, you know what, I skip a couple of top steps, as I come up out of the basement, or, being here in the house alone, you hear things go on, and we've got 3 cats, and I'll look around and go like, well, all 3 cats are in the room with me. I wonder what that was upstairs. There's that kind of stuff. So, it piques the interest.
It piques the interest. I was now, have you got, other than having the ghost tube on the table, have you taken it around in the basement and kind of like walked around with it a little bit? Because now I'm intrigued by why you can see something through the ghost tube that you may not be able to see with the naked eye. Like,
come
on, Eric, if you're going to have the equipment, you better use it.
You know what? You are exactly right. And I have had intention to do it, and I have not. And I don't know why that is, but I'm new at this.
It's called being chicken. I mean,
yeah.
we know what the
Yeah, no, I don't really want to know if there's anything inside of my house, because I'm going to be living here for a while yet.
I can totally understand. So nobody has seen anything yet, but you've got the thing on the ghost tube, and you've got some eerie feelings and noises and stuff.
Yes, yeah. And it is what it is. We kind of live. If you've seen the movie, or if you've seen the show Ghosts, I just kind of.
Oh, that's the best.
Yeah, right. Especially the English version.
Oh, I have not watched the English version, but I mean, nothing beats Thor. Explain. And for everybody that's listening that has no idea what we're talking about, there's a great show on called Ghosts. I think it's on CBS or ABC or whatever. And it's about it's in a manor in like Connecticut or something that a young couple inherits, and it is full of ghosts from over the 1,000 years, maybe. There's like a Viking that died on the property, and a Native American, a Revolutionary War. It's fantastic. One of the funniest things. But I often picture the people that I talk to that can interact with spirits and see them. This is what their life would be like. Probably not as funny, but nevertheless, it would be kind of annoying because you're never alone, you know? Right. And if you can't, you kind of know something's there, but at least it's not there all the time, right in your forefront, in front of you, that you can at least forget that there's something there probably sometimes. And feel like you can step out of the shower and, not have to throw a towel on it. Right. So, but, well, guys, I'm glad we got all the technical difficulties worked out. I'm glad you reached out to me. I love this story. That, a couple of buddies going out and not knowing what they're going to get into and having something really cool happen, because it is. No matter what, something cool happened. And was it a ghost? Who knows? But it was something that you can't really explain, and that's fantastic. And that's a great story. You're always going to have that story. And is there any plans to go back out to Swamp Road and maybe do a revisit and see if you get anything else?
I'd love to. I would definitely love to.
There is no way I'm going back.
This time I'm going to keep the batteries in my pocket, or I don't know. Yes. I got to keep them away from wherever they discharge their precious energy.
I'm telling you, that would have been fantastic to have a video of. Oh my God! Of looking at the ghost tube screen and then looking down the road. I mean, that would have probably been one of the. That'd be some great evidence right there. So,
yes. Oh my God!
I'm just saying.
Don't rub it in, Shane. Come on.
No. Hey, look, and Brent made a great point when we were talking earlier. He's like, everybody always says if something like that happened to me, I'd get a picture or I'd get video. And that's the last thing you're thinking of. Mm-hmm. I mean, do you know how many people I've talked to that have been, come across like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch or a UFO or something and had the ability to take a video or picture, and that's the last thing they're thinking of.
Yeah, I was so caught up in the moment, and that was probably the last thing in my mind at that time. I mean, now if I do it again, I would think, but at that time, I had never had anything happen to me like that before, so I was just like, living in the moment, and was the last thing I thought.
I gotta be honest, that's the way it should be anyway.
Oh,
you should be living in that moment and enjoying it and appreciating it and just soaking it in and trying to, and live in the awe of what is going on.
Exactly.
We all spend too much time on our phones anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we like to get out in the woods and explore and do this sort of thing and just kind of get back out with nature and see what we find, No,
I love it. I love it, guys. And I so appreciate you guys reaching out, and I appreciate you guys coming on. And I gotta be honest, you guys are so entertaining. I mean, there might be a show in this for you guys. You guys might have a show. I'd almost say you guys ought to videotape you guys' whole experiences and start a YouTube channel. There you go.
Oh wow! All right.
I'd subscribe. I think it would be great. So, well, guys, hey, thanks again. I appreciate you coming on and
thank you.
Telling the story. So I can't wait to hear another one.
All right. Well, I'll be in touch if something happens, definitely. And I appreciate you having us on.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.